Hey, what up, guys? So coming at you with the 2019 TRU Boxing Awards. This video, we're going to discuss the non-title win of the year. So what that means is basically we're going to have candidates from every division for basically contenders bouts, like fights that weren't title fights. There's so many damn world title fights going on around, the world, because there's so many fucking world titles that, there's not enough contenders fights and guys just fighting just to fight and get in position for world titles. So that's what some of these are. Some of them are mandatory final eliminators to get a world title shot. Some of them are interim title fights, but they're not world title fights. Interim title fights is basically just a glorified number one contendership fight. So that's what a lot of these are. And then some of them are just flat out grudge matches between, two guys that are just trying to fight for positioning or make a name for themselves. So and the way I did the rankings was just based on what the fight meant to the division, to the fighter, to the sport, different things like that. So there really wasn't one thing I went off of, which I never really go off of one thing for any decision I make in any of my boxing awards or my opinions. It's also always based on multiple things and grouping them all together. So let's start off with the 122-pound super bantamweight division. So the non-title win of the year over there, that goes to Azat Havanassian's fourth round knockout of Franklin Manzanilla in September. This fight took place on a Golden Boy Facebook watch card. Havanassian was coming into this fight. He hadn't really been given an opportunity since he almost ruined Ray Vargas and broke Ray Vargas's jaw, but he dropped a close 12-round decision to Vargas. He'd got 3 consecutive knockout wins over low-level competition, and going in against Manzanilla was coming off of a great performance against Vargas as well, and was a slugger as well. So this fight coming in, a lot of people looked at it as a flat-out slugfest that could go either way. And it was an eliminator. I don't know if it was a final eliminator, but it was an eliminator in the WBA for positioning in the 122-pound division. And Havanassian went out and just fucking destroyed Manzanilla. 4th round knockout win, big time win for Havanassian. So that's the 122-pound super bantamweight non-title win of the year. Now the featherweight non-title win of the year. Featherweight is 126 pounds. That goes to Tug Nyambayar's 12-round unanimous decision over Claudio Marrero. That took place in January. It was on Fox. This was for the WBC's mandatory number one contendership. So it was a WBC final eliminator. Tug Nyambayar, undefeated Mongolian fighter, and you had Marrero, a veteran, trying to put himself in line for his first world title shot. Nyambayar got a hard fought and a close 12-round unanimous decision in this one, and is moving forward with that win as he's going to be cashing in on his title shot against Gary Russell Jr. Coming up in February of 2020. Next, we'll look at the 130-pound non-title. It's just super featherweight, the super featherweight non-title win of the year, and that is going to go to Shavkat Rakimov's 8th round TKO of Azunga Vuzil, as this was an IBF title final eliminator. There wasn't a lot of contenders bouts and non-title fights that were significant. This fight was to prove the number one contender in the IBF to get in line. Rakimov had been looking for a big name opponent. He went to South Africa to face Fuzil in his home country and got a hard-fought 8th round knockout win in this one. It was a good fight. There was some controversy after the fight about drug taking and stuff that still hasn't been cleared up, but on my paper, that's the super featherweight non-title win of the year. Next up is the 140-pound junior welterweight non-title win of the year, and that goes to Pablo Cesar Cano's first round TKO of former 3-division world champion Jorge Linares. That was in January of 2019. Big upset right here as Cano came out, the bigger man, and destroyed Linares in only one round. The 135-pound lightweight non-title win of the year, we skipped over that division. That one was tough to choose because there wasn't a lot of big non-title fights in this division. I gave that one to Lee Selby for his hard-fought 12-round majority decision over Ricky Burns. They were just fighting for positioning. It was a domestic rivalry. You know, both those guys fight out of the United Kingdom. So that's kind of why it was a big deal. They're both former world champs. So I gave it to that one for the non-title win of the year. 147-pound welterweight non-title win of the year. That goes to Yordenis Ugas in his 12-round unanimous decision over Omar Figueroa Jr. That was an impressive performance by Ugas. Omar Figueroa was undefeated. Ugas was coming off of his controversial split decision loss to Sean Porter. So big-time win right there for positioning at 147. 154, super welterweight non-title win of the year. That one goes to Patrick Teixeira's 12-round unanimous decision over Carlos Adams, who was undefeated coming in, as this was for the WBO interim super welterweight championship. So, yeah, he got a hard-fought 12-round unanimous decision in that one. That was a good win for him. Next, at 160, the non-title win of the year, that's middleweight, goes to Sergey Derevyanchenko's 12-round unanimous decision over Jack Kulke, as this was a IBF title final eliminator. And Derevyanchenko it was a hard-fought battle, but he got a deserving win here. And it actually put him in line for that huge title shot he got against Triple G Gennady Golovkin. So that was a big fight and a big win right there for Derevyanchenko. The 168-pound super middleweight non-title win of the year goes to Chris Eubank Jr. for his 12-round unanimous decision over former two-time champion James DeGale. Yeah, this was a big rivalry right here out of the United Kingdom. Really was for positioning. DeGale was at the top of the division. Eubank was more towards the bottom of the top 10. And yeah, there was an upset and a big-time win for Eubank. The 175-pound non-title win of the year goes to Jean Pascal's 8-round technical unanimous decision over undefeated Marcus Brown, as Pascal captured the WBA interim light heavyweight title. This was a huge upset right here, as Brown was in line to fight for 2 world titles if he got through Pascal, and he got put down 3 times in the fight, and a cut was opened up over his eye, and it went to the scorecards, and he lost by 1 point on every scorecard. And it was a major upset as Pascal became the interim champion, and that led to him being put in as the that led to him being upgraded to the WBA regular light heavyweight champion. So that was a big win. The 200-pound cruiserweight non-title win of the year goes to Ilunga Makabu's 12-round majority decision over undefeated Alexei Papin. This was a WBC final eliminator. Ended up being a great fight between the two, and Makabu walked out with a hard-fought 12-round majority decision, and that has led to a world title shot, which he's going to get actually at the end of this week. On January 31st, he'll be fighting Mikhail Cieslak for the vacant WBC title. So that was a big win for him. And then the heavyweight non-title win of the year, that goes to Dillian White's 12-round unanimous decision over Oscar Rivas, as Dillian White became the WBC interim heavyweight champion with that win and put himself in line for a future world title shot. So he got knocked down in that fight, but outworked and outboxed the tough and undefeated Rivas, and got a deserving decision in that one as he captured the interim title. And now we're going to get into our top 5 finalists. So that's all 12 divisions. Now let's get into our top 5, the finalists. We're going to count down from 5 to 1 who the best non-title wins of the year. Number 5 goes to Pablo Cesar Cano's first round TKO of Jorge Linares. This was a major upset. Cano was a guy who fought for world titles years ago, back in like 2000, 12, 13, 14 in that area. And he came up short. You know, he's a solid fighter, but he used to fight at he also used to fight at welterweight, and he was coming down to he's been in 140 for a few years now, but hadn't really been making any noise. He lost some fights, and Linares had won his debut at 140, and about 9 months earlier had went to war with arguably the pound for pound king, Vasily Lomachenko. He knocked Lomachenko down. It was a close fight before Lomachenko landed a wicked body punch that put Linares down for good, but it was a great fight, and Linares, for me, was number one at 140 because nobody really had stepped up and taken that spot yet. It was kind of a wide open division, so he was trying to establish himself, and he didn't even get a chance to get started in this fight. Kano was noticeably bigger, but I think a lot of people, myself included, thought he was going to outbox Kano, and he just never got a chance to, as Kano just walked right through him and destroyed him, knocked him out in the very first round, put him down 3 times. Huge win for Kano. This finishes down a little more because it didn't really lead to anything. It happened in January, and he didn't really get an opportunity at anything, but it was a huge win for his career and a big win and a good moment against a top pound-for-pound type fighter. And, Kano deserves, a lot of props, but it's kind of down in the top 5 because he was noticeably bigger, and that's probably the reason that he was able to pull off the win the way he did. But either way, it was a big win, and he deserves to be in the top 5. Number 4 is Patrick Teixeira's 12-round unanimous decision over previously undefeated Carlos Adams for the WBO interim super welterweight title. I picked this fight because pretty much Teixeira was being written off in this fight. He was kind of a guy who had only got a shot once in his career against Curtis Stevens and got knocked out in that fight. He hadn't really done anything much since, fought close fights against lower level competition, and he was going in against Adames, who was undefeated but hadn't really fought top level competition either, but was kind of being groomed as a future world champion or contender with Top Rank. And Teixeira came in, he fought his ass off. It was a really close, really hard fought battle. He scored a knockdown over Adams, and that ended up being the thing that won him the fight, because without that knockdown, I believe the fight would have been scored a majority draw. And he got the win, became the interim champion, but Jaime Munguia gave up the main belt. And that later that week during the convention, Teixeira was upgraded to full world champion. So that was pretty much a title fight win for him, even though it technically wasn't a title fight, which is why it gets into this list. But that was a big win. Overnight, Teixeira, with a hard-fought victory by 1 point and a knockdown, put him as a world champion in the top 10. So huge win right there. And he's already in line to defend against Brian Castano, another top 10 guy. So big-time win for Teixeira. Now, finishing number 3, the third best non-title win of the year goes to Jean Pascal's 8-round technical unanimous decision over Marcus Brown to capture the WBA interim title. Heading into this fight, Pascal was a huge underdog. He's a veteran, former world champion, but nobody thought he was going to beat Brown. Brown was coming off his best career win, a dominating 12-round unanimous decision over Badou Jack in January on a Manny Pacquiao undercard. And he was looking to just do that to Pascal, dominate Pascal, and Pascal was being looked at as a stepping stone and move forward towards a world title shot after that, as he was in line for 2 world titles. He was in line for the WBA and the WBC light heavyweight titles. So a lot was going on for Brown, and Brown started off hot. He hurt, stunned. Pascal was dominating him the first couple rounds, and then in the third round, I believe Pascal caught him clean, knocked him down. Brown seemed to weather it, but that was a 10-8 round for Pascal. Then it happened again, I believe in the 5th, he got knocked down again, or the 6th, and he ended up going down a total of 3 times, and those last couple rounds were close. And then in the 8th round, a cut got opened up over Marcus Brown's eye, and the referee, the doctor stopped the fight because it was on like a headbutt or an elbow, and so it goes to the scorecards in that case. And Pascal got a 1-point win, technical unanimous decision win, 1-point win on all 3 judges' scorecards. So huge upset, huge win. Those knockdowns meant everything, those 3 knockdowns, and Pascal became the WBA interim champion. And then later in the year was upgraded to regular champion, where he ended up successfully defending the title against Badou Jack. And That wouldn't have happened. He was coming off a year where he got dominated over 12 rounds against Dimitri Bivol. He had retired momentarily. I mean, this was a huge surprise, a huge win. And now Pascal at 36 is still in the top 10, right at the tail end of the top 5. He's right there. So that was a big win, big for him, big for boxing, led to a world title. So congrats to Jean Pascal, the third best non-title win of the year. Second best non-title win of the year goes to Yordenis Ugas for his 12-round unanimous decision over undefeated Omar Figueroa Jr. Heading into this fight, I think it was kind of, some people were picking Ugas, but there was a lot of people that thought Omar Figueroa was going to win. I personally picked Ugas because of the way he looked against Sean Porter. He had fought Sean Porter in March and in a mandatory title fight, and he fought his ass off. And with his awkward style, a lot of people thought that he got the win, and he dropped a very close 12-round split decision. So heading into this fight, he was on the undercard, and he served as a co-feature to Manny Pacquiao and Keith Thurman. He was getting big exposure, and he had a chance to prove how good he really was. Omar Figueroa, undefeated, but not really the last few years dedicated fighter, but an all-action fighter. Throws a lot of punches. He had a nice fight with John Molina Jr. earlier in the year, and I think a lot of people thought that it could be close. I thought it could be close, but Ugas said nope. He dominated Figueroa from start to finish, hurt him, put him down, and just got a one-sided 12-round unanimous decision. The dominance that he showed in this fight in the welterweight division of all divisions, huge win now. Ugas might be the boogeyman heading into 2020 at 147, but he really proved himself, and nobody wants to sign on the dotted line to fight him, and sometimes that's better than even getting the opportunities because that means he's feared. And after his performance against Porter and then against Figueroa, he deserves to be feared. And now the non-title win of the year, 2019, I'm giving that to Chris Eubank Jr.'s 12-round unanimous decision over James DeGale. This was a big fight at the time. It was a huge fight in the United Kingdom, both domestic rivals. But DeGale, former two-time champion, I think I still had him at number 2 at the time of the fight. Eubank was at the tail end of the top 10. And Eubank really, in his career, hadn't stepped up yet and got that signature win to come out of his dad's shadow. He was a good fighter. People knew he was a good fighter, but the 2 times he stepped up against Billy Joe Saunders in 2014, I believe, he dropped a split decision. And then he took on George Groves in 2017 in the World Boxing Super Series, 2018, the World Boxing Super Series semifinals. And I thought he was going to beat Groves. And Groves dominated him, outboxed him, outclassed him. And he really looked like a one-trick pony type fighter where he's only like kind of a power puncher. This fight against DeGale, I think it had to do with DeGale being older too, but he dominated DeGale start to finish, just picked him apart, scored 2 knockdowns, just dominated him over 12 rounds, one-sided, unanimous decision, and he, put himself in line for bigger things. He's moved down to middleweight since, but it was just such a big win for him. But also it made him, he came out of his dad's shadow and is now a top-tier, threat to the middleweight and super middleweight divisions, and he should be taken very seriously. So big-time win for him. And that's it for my 2019 True Boxing Awards for the non-title win of the year. Sorry these videos are going on long. There's a lot to talk about. If you're interested, watch them. I hope you do. All right, guys, that's it. True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.